no student should feel uncomfortable in their classroom, whether it be a teacher that says those comments or a fellow student or administrator. No teacher should be, or no student should be exposed to that, to those comments, to that environment. And on behalf of the board, the school, the entire district, I would like to apologize for what was said. It was, again, regardless of context, it was very inappropriate and repulsive. Those forms of comments have no place in our schools, and we cannot have and we cannot tolerate behavior that makes our students feel unsafe. We do try and make sure that our students do have a safe atmosphere, but we do need to make sure that we address these matters, that we continue to work on making sure that all students do feel safe and comfortable in their classrooms, and we do have work to do, obviously. And I do welcome community members who will be expressing their concern with the district, with the board, and the district is willing to meet with representatives from the community to see how we can partner on solutions to ensure this doesn't happen. And that's about as candid as I can get without crossing the line into where I would like to. But go ahead and come to that.
So sorry. First,
podium.
before we even begin, I very much appreciate your comments and your statements. That was some of what we would like to hear, and we appreciate that. As showing up for racial justice in collaboration with Black Lives Matter Sacramento, as parents, teachers, and concerned community members in the movement for Black liberation, we have a duty to rally against both individual acts of racism and institutional practices and programs that uphold white authority. As a public school district, Folsom Cordova has a duty to protect its children from discrimination, harassment, intimidation, and bullying. Friends, so we have a shared responsibility. We have a shared vision, and we would like to call upon you to address a grave injustice within that framework. Your middle school student, a young Black person, heard the words from the teacher you employ, and you already addressed that. Equality, when you hang one Black person, you hang them all. It's very hard to even say those words on a podium. The individual anti-Black racism of this statement is violent enough to warrant censure. However, the district's response, from this point, or lack thereof, has compounded the harm. Folsom Cordova Unified School District, like the rest of the nation, has much work to do in unpacking not only the meaning of equality, but also the implementation of it. A historical overview has illuminated several instances of discrimination that compelled your administration to approve of programs from tolerance workshops for staff to positive behavioral intervention strategies for students. The question now becomes, is it working, and if not, why not? Your data shows that Black students are being disproportionately expelled at 4 times the rate of their white peers. Black students are being disproportionately suspended at 7 times the rate of their white peers, and this is 2014-15. White teachers being disproportionately hired, 90% compared to 2% of Black teachers. That is disproportionate for your numbers. When Black students are being targeted and white authority is being overly represented, Folsom Cordova is at a crossroads. Our shared duty, our shared vision is calling upon us to challenge the individual act of this teacher, as well as shift the culture of an educational system clearly unable to respond to it quickly. To be clear, we expect reparation for your student, accountability for your teacher, and transformation for your district. We want a meaningful public apology from the teacher, administration, and district, and thank you to the student, to his parents, and to the student body. We are also demanding to participate in the establishment of a working group comprised of concerned community members, students, parents, and district representatives to develop a restorative justice model for this particular incident and future incidents that comprise the safety and well-being of students. We appreciate your time.
Yeah, I want to reiterate Trina's gratitude for taking a step and saying you know, this is repulsive, this is reprehensible. You know, part of our response being so just like deep from inside us is that there hasn't really been, even that said, publicly to the community or to the from the district, and so that kind of lack of response, as we've said, compounding the harm, wanting to see a proactive response. You know, this happening over a month ago, wanting to see a proactive response, and not just in apologizing and moving along, but in finding ways to bring transformative justice into our schools. We know that you didn't create institutions of white supremacy, but we're all still living with institutions of white supremacy, and so we all need to be working to dismantle those institutions. And so specifically around how Carrie Phillips, the principal of Sutter Middle School, responded to the complaint. Firstly, in her response on the school website, you know, she kind of talks about controversial statements or racially insensitive or racial remarks. You know, we want to be clear. It's a racial remark when I say something like, I exercise white privilege. I experience white privilege. It's a racist remark when something is said like what was said, and once again, it's been repeated, I'm not going to repeat it. But so for the response to be that this teacher, Woody Hart, was instructed in discussing topics in history that could potentially be sensitive, they'll be instructed to select examples that are at a level of complexity to the students that 8th grade can understand. Now, for this to be a response, I find very condescending to 8th graders. I feel like they can understand what was happening. They can understand the exploitation of black labor and black bodies at this time period. They can understand that people were treated and understood societally as subhuman, and that should not be something that we shy away from talking about in a very real way, so that we can address it within ourselves now. And so when we instead call it just an insensitive comment or a racial comment, we're really protecting this white supremacy, and instead of really taking the steps to root it out, and trusting that our 8th graders know what is wrong and what is right in our history, and should be continuing to make that determination every day. So furthermore, not to use stereotypes or culturally insensitive language that may be misconstrued to make a point. Well, that's kind of my point of what I was just saying. These are not culturally insensitive statements. They're racist, and also, to the next point, challenging and controversial lessons that require making complex or difficult inferences to create very simple analogies that do not focus on the controversy, but that can convey the message clearly to teenagers in a manner in which they can relate. So once again, this was the principal's instruction to the teacher, or like what they said their instruction with to the teacher would be around teaching around these kind of issues. Why I feel like that's unacceptable is not only the condescension around the understanding of an 8th grade mind, which is very strong and powerful, and if we would listen more to youth, I would love to hear some of Wendy's thoughts on this, but if we listen to their voices, we find that their understanding is really capable, and we don't give them enough opportunity to participate in dismantling the systems of hierarchical power that are in our school systems, that they very much need to be a part of, if they are expected to be a part of that as adults as they move forward in their life, right? And so this idea that equality, explaining equality, even from a context of states' rights, or a historical perspective of what a racist person would say in the South, this is not, the issue is that he was already overgeneralizing. This teacher was already not offering nuance. You know, if you wanted to talk about what would Southern people think about equality, or how would they treat folks from other states, which have been kind of the narrative of the context around what this person was saying. If you wanted to do that, and I'm so almost done, I see, and I just didn't get a timer, so then I had no capacity to know. And, but I will, so I'm summing it up right now, and just that being that for our students, you know, the complexity of looking at that issue from a historical context, we could say, you know, there is a very nuanced discussion to have there that 8th graders can understand around equality, and it not being, hang all black people. That isn't even how things were going in the South at the time. Absolutely lynching, a huge problem, thousands of folks brutalized. But the fact of the matter was substandard citizenry, exploitation of labor and bodies and torture, and all these things. That is a nuance, and it does need to be talked about when we look at equality in the South and ongoing. And so I would encourage more nuanced conversation. I would encourage away from oversimplifying, and I would say let's dive deeper and hear what 8th graders have to say about it.
Thank you.
I think when there is a racist incident like this, it's pretty natural for us to want to just say no. No, that's not what we're all about. That is not who we are. That's not what we believe in. And I think that that's a good first step, but I think that that has to be just the first step. Because we also have a culture where the teacher felt comfortable, felt safe making that statement in front of his students. And I think we have to look at that part of the issue as well. I think this is bigger than just a personnel issue. It's in our culture, and we have to think about how can we change that? How can we make that better? So I would encourage you all to not just handle this as a personnel issue and move on, but really think about how we can make this change so that no teacher feels like it's okay for them to make a statement like that. Thank you.
Thank you.